Mr. Merrill.
Yes. Next item is your 1015 time certain F2, Commissioner Beckner's item concerning the Ready4Work project.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Merrill, and thank you, board members, ladies and gentlemen of the public. As we all know, the last few years, economic development and creating job opportunities here in our community has been a priority of this board, and this board, I think, has showed its commitment to create those opportunities in our community. There is a small segment of our community that, however, has not had those opportunities up until now. And I'm referring to the over 2,200 residents that returned to our community from the Florida State Prison after serving their time and giving their debts to society. Interestingly enough, these individuals, of course, not only return to a community with a stigma of being an ex-felon, therefore having difficulties obtaining jobs, but they also carry an interestingly number of other hurdles and issues when they come back to our community. 56% are likely to have a form of mental illness, with 20% having a debilitating mental illness. 67% of returning offenders are likely to have a substance abuse problem, and 61% don't have a high school diploma or GED. So given these impediments and the fact that most return to our community without a support system, with only $50 in their pocket, is it any wonder that over 33% of those individuals without that support system will end up recidivating and returning to prison? Today, you're going to hear about a nationally recognized program that assists ex-offenders with reentry into the community and workforce and helps them lead toward and helps them make progress toward a more productive life. And I will say that this program is very unique in the fact that it has been endorsed and recommended on a bipartisan level by 3 presidents. It has recently received bipartisan support in the Florida State Legislature, as well as funding, and also, of course, at the local level at this county commission. And our last budget process, I thank each and every one of you board members for supporting and recognizing the need of this program by allocating $350,000 to get this program started here in our community. What today this presentation is about is to introduce this to our community, as well as to get constructive feedback from each of you and give direction to our organizations that will be facilitating this program and how this can be successfully implemented in our community. Here today, we've got Kevin Gay, who is the president of the New Hope, who has effectively implemented this program in Jacksonville. And with you, many of you may be familiar with Mr. Robert Blunt, who is here with many of his members of the A. Brown Ministries and their board of directors, who will discuss how this program will be rolled out in Tampa and Hillsborough County. So with that, Mr. Gay, I welcome you here to Hillsborough County, and the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, it's an honor to be with you. My name is Kevin Gay, and as the previous speakers, I'm from 20th Avenue North in Jacksonville, Florida. We run a community development corporation and have since 1999. And with that community development corporation, initially we were building affordable housing, but what we realized early on that community development is way more than just bricks and mortar. Community development really has to engage the broader community in the efforts, and it has to be an economic development model. And so what we've, over the years, have developed is an initiative that would blend in the 2 important pieces there, developing affordable housing, building equity, at the same time using the same model to help transition ex-offenders back into the community. What I think most of you probably are aware of, as has been mentioned earlier, we have about 92 to 95% of those that are coming from the prisons and jails end up back in some of the poorest communities in America. And so lack of jobs, lack of transportation, and the connectors there are incredibly difficult. What we're excited about is the fact that we have an opportunity to take lessons learned in Jacksonville and also in 15 other cities around the country over a period of 3 years in a national demonstration project and replicate a model that we've been working on for the last couple of years. But strategically, it's important for us to be moving with an organization that really has kind of a like-minded spirit. And over the last 10 years, I've had the opportunity of working with Robert Blunt at A. Brown Ministries, and of course, been a big fan of Reverend Brown over the many years and their work in engaging people like Coach Tony Dungy and others into this sometimes often difficult conversation. But we're very honored and proud that we're going to be launching our program here with A. Brown, and you're going to hear more about them here in a moment. But the program that evolved from our work is a program called Ready4Work. And if I could just tell you a real quick story. When I came from the corporate world 15 years ago, started building affordable housing. I was on the board of the Habitat, the largest Habitat affiliate in Jacksonville, called Habijax. And we were building houses, but what we were doing is I was bringing in contractors from all over the community into our neighborhood. And every week, tools were getting stolen from our job site. And so to try to keep contractors engaged in this, I had a company out of Ocala build a trailer to customize and take all the tools and lock them up for the contractors every day. And wouldn't you know, they stole the whole cotton picking trailer from me. So I said, Lord, I know there's a message in here. I just don't know what it is exactly. And a week later, a wonderful pastor came up to me and said, if you'll start hiring people from within the area, you'll be incredibly surprised at what can happen in the work that you're doing. And I got to be honest, it was probably like a deer in the headlights. But we did. We started hiring some young folks into the model. And from that point forward, not a nail was stolen from our jobs. And what empowered in me was the power of a job. But what also came with my background was understanding, as we talked earlier, Commissioner Beckner was talking about all of the different issues. Ready4Work morphed in 2002 as a design through the White House. President Bush was looking to develop a faith-based initiative and was interested in finding programs around the country that were beginning to show promise of what a job could mean in a precursor at reducing recidivism. And at the time, our sheriff had been sending people, because we were only a 10 or 15-minute walk into the urban core from the downtown jail, and folks weren't coming back with the cycle that they were used to. And so what we began to understand at that point, that something magical was happening, and we got a grant to really look at building the infrastructure around this work. I got to be honest with you, at the time, 12, 11 years ago, I didn't know what a recidivism rate was. I was coming into this as kind of a social effort. But after looking at the work and after looking at the population and the challenges they had, it really hit me that for us to be effective in this, it was a paradigm shift that we really, who was our customer in this conversation? You know, in the social world, you typically want to look at those folks who are coming in to your office and say, that's my customer. But if we were really sincere about engaging a broad group of employers in this model, we really had to look at those employers just as much as our customer as we did the client walking in the door. And so what we developed, and this came from my background in the insurance world, that's where I was at before I came into this work. I said our staff, in essence, to be able to get our hands around that, we need to be able to underwrite every individual that comes in our door. And I know our staff probably looked at me like I was crazy, but in essence, we need to really understand really two different populations. We need to understand what the needs of the employers are, but just as important, we really need to do a deep dig on our clients coming in. And so we developed some incredible tools, but we started off with our employers and some focus groups. We brought probably 15 of the top CEOs in Jacksonville together and asked them the question, would you be willing to hire ex-offenders? And I'm not going to tell you some of the immediate responses that we received. But once the conversation began to build a moment, you had contractor employers saying, well, you know, being on time is important. Somebody that's not on drugs, somebody that's got a good attitude and a willingness to learn. And in essence, what gave us at that point in time was a real roadmap on really understanding what the employers were saying. And what they were saying was, we need for you to vet these candidates. It can't be a traditional go into a one-stop location for a day, an orientation session, and then be sent out to an employer. It's a disservice to the client, it's a disservice to the employer. And so what we understood in this model is that we could learn how to identify what those needs of the employers were. And when they did that, they really outlined what it would be to be that key employee. So with that in mind, we began to really look at with an assessment tool, and all of this, those have had a chance to look at our work, have come to understand it's an incredibly evidence-based, I think, true evidence-based work, in that when we go in and underwrite, we gather all the data in a weighted assessment tool, and all of this is electronically captured in a data system called efforts to outcomes. For example, with alcohol and drugs, you're weighted at maybe 50 points for alcohol and marijuana, all the way down to 100 for crack and meth. Did you start using at a young age and older age? But in essence, really scoring out each person coming to us across the board in 11 different categories of work experience, mental health issues, drug abuse, family connectors, all of the areas that you know that are deficits that we have, and then designing a system that would allow us to really, truly develop the programming that we needed, developing pathway designs for certain industries. It was exciting to hear the gentleman before me talk about the port with the number of jobs going there, the same thing we're working on in Jacksonville with the port. But really, by identifying the issues that each of our folks have, develop the programming around each of those areas. And then what we were able to do within a system called Efforts to Outcomes is to measure every movement we had with the client. Person comes in, all the assessment information is logged into our system while they're in the class, and what we learned from the employer is that we have to vet, and so for anywhere from 2 weeks to 11 or 12 months, based upon what we learned in our assessment, folks go into one of 4 tracks, and unfortunately, what programs like ours around the country end up getting are those in those tracks 3 and 4, which reading at a 5th grade reading level, no legal marketable skills, work experience, substance abuse, mental health issues. And with that track 3 and 4, it really outlines a protocol or a plan of care that we're able to enter into our data system at any moment in time. We even had the Department of Corrections here going forward in this next session. They've agreed that they're going to use our data system as their way to monitor the progress we're having with our clients. And so there is a real science, I think, around this work. And I know former Senator Chris, when you were involved with the in the state of Florida, and the work that you did was remarkable. And I know developing a community development corporation here in Tampa, addressing a lot of those similar issues. But the exciting part that we've come to see in all of this, which is really exciting to me, we had Governor Scott in our office a couple months ago. The fact that by being able to get a job, we've been able to prove, and see, with data now that's been vetted by the White House, Public-Private Ventures, the Department of Labor, that we have been able to consistently reduce recidivism dramatically, and have in all of the other 16 sites that it's been announced around the country. Our recidivism rates in a grant that was vetted by the White House and Department of Labor reduced Bureau of Prison rates by almost 50%. So we do know that employment is key. What's been really neat about what we've been doing because of the work and the science that we've put in and making a strategic match with the employer, and by the way, we've been able to enroll really now close to 400 employers in Jacksonville who've agreed to hire. I think that's remarkable, but I think it also makes a statement that employers are looking for good workers. I've got a gentleman that's become a friend that owns a large McDonald's franchise. And he said, we have, and I get this question asked all the time, why should we give an ex-offender an advantage over somebody that hasn't committed a crime? And all we say is, we don't want you to give us an advantage. We just want you to give that person an equal opportunity. But what we've learned in the process is there's a real value added that comes in this conversation with an employer, because we have folks that are coming in now into positions at McDonald's in a tough economy with 2 or 3 degrees, but the owner of the company says that they've got more mental health issues and substance abuse issues. But with your group, you vetted them for a series of months. You're going to provide a job coach and a life coach with these folks for a year. And so there's an incredible value added that we bring to the table. As I mentioned to you, you can see across the board and just so it's important that you understand, folks define recidivism differently. We define recidivism as any arrest, not the state of Florida and Department of Corrections as a reconviction on a new crime. Ours is any arrest, because folks, if you're arrested in Tampa or Jacksonville, you've got the cost of the public defender, you've got the cost of the officer in the arrest, and time in the county facility, and then of course in the state facility as well. So we've defined our recidivism rate, and as you can see, our recidivism rate has been incredible. We've also been able, with our data, to show what happens when we have a person and persons that are not going through the program, and see the difference of what that recidivism can be. People ask what kind of jobs. Logistics, warehousing. We're working with the University of North Florida and we have designed certification programs that they're going to import here in Tampa. Our workforce board has agreed to provide resources like they have in Jacksonville for certification. We're also working to link some of the corporations that have been hiring our folks in Jacksonville that have relationships here locally as well. The value to the employer is incredible. When you sit in front of an employer and say, I'm going to bring somebody that's been vetted, we're going to be with them for a year. We're going to be following up at the job to make sure they're not late. We're going to come in and randomly drug test for you. But then at the same time, we're going to wrap the work opportunity tax credit, which can be up to $10,000 for an employer, for them. It really begins to develop what we think a real value added. And so with that, I'd like to turn over the floor to Robert Blunt to talk with you a little bit about the replication in Tampa.
Mr. Blunt, I don't want to rush you, but we're running way behind this morning. So if you could keep it as short as possible. Thank you.
Real quick, I just want to say that I met Kevin Gay 12 years ago and have really watched them hone in on their program. And we've been at this work in this community for a long time. In fact, my father-in-law and our founder, Reverend Abe Brown, in 1993 started a for-profit entity called Willing Workers. And even then, he understood the need of gainful employment in order to transition people successfully back into our community. And so I like to think of our organization as a grassroots organization with Eagle Vision. And this is truly an Eagle Vision project that has great opportunity for both public and private opportunity. We are poised for this replication. If we can secure additional capitalization to not only start up this program, but also to retrofit some of our facilities and begin to assess, recruit, interview, and hire staff to get this going, we have leveraged resources at the state level as well as conversations that are taking place at the federal level as well. And just for the sake of time, I just real quickly want to invite one of our board members, Jay Fechtel, to the podium, who will just talk about what we're doing with the private and business sector so that you know that indeed this is a solid public and private venture.
Good morning. I'm a business owner in the community, and I've been working on the board of A. Brown Ministries for about 10 years. I think that I've never seen the groundswell of enthusiasm for job creation, but also helping the needy at the same time. I have just a brief background. I have several companies. We have about 25 employees, and I've been searching this whole area of how to help this constituency for years. And what I have found is that a job is the most meaningful thing that I've ever been able to do. The big concern that I've had is sustainability. A lot of the help that we've tried to do as a company and in the business community for ex-offenders has not been sustainable. You can help for a day, help for a week, but the kind of thing that I have seen results with has been employment. There's something just incredibly redemptive about working. When somebody's out there using their God-given gifts and having that opportunity, they have a sense of fulfillment, they have a sense of purpose, and they have more motivation to overcome the problems that they've come through. I had literally about 45 days ago, I drove off one of our projects, and we have several ex-offenders currently employed for a long period of time. And one of the ones that has been with us for about 3.5 years, he ran up to my car. He knocked on the window. I was driving off, knocked on the window with a real insistent mindset, and he just thanked me and thanked me and thanked me. I'm not one to be thanked, but what he was thankful for was the job. He said to me several times, "It saved my marriage. It saved my family. It saved me." Now, he wasn't talking, he was talking about real practical things. This is a young man that came from the A. Brown Ministries Life Transformation Community, graduated from that, came and worked with us, and had some very challenging times early. It was a real adjustment. We essentially went through and tried to make happen what Ready4Work I wish was there at that time. We did a poor job of it, and by the grace of God, this young man is now back together with his wife. His family stayed together. It's just an amazing thing. So this is the kind of results that I've seen. I think I'm most excited about this for several reasons. One is I mentioned the enthusiasm I'm seeing in the philanthropic and the business community to try to make a difference in this way. They recognize that some more serious, experienced program in our area is needed. We just, the big focus is on real outcomes. And what we see with Ready4Work, and one of the most exciting things, is it's proven. We don't have to recreate the wheel. I consider that a huge positive investment of any kind of resource, time, the financial support that the community gives. I think the efforts are going to result in a really high return. So that's real exciting. The other thing, and I'm encouraged, and I think Kevin mentioned it, is just the bipartisan involvement. I've never seen in this realm such an awesome display of people from all spectrums, different places, Republicans, Democrats, all on board with this idea. And it's because it's a good idea. And I think the most important thing that is very encouraging to me is that I've had the experience to see real changed lives, and at the end of the day, even though it's great for our community, will result in a lot of less broken families, less crime in our community, a lot of things that it will do, positive benefits for me. The most important thing is like the young man I mentioned, actually his life's changed, and he's moving on. So I appreciate what you're doing. I really appreciate your care for the needy in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Beckner.
Thank you. And I know there's some lights on. People might have questions, so I will open up the board for questions, and then I'll have just some brief closing comments.
Commissioner Sharp.
I just wanted to quickly thank Commissioner Beckner for bringing this item forward, Mr. Blount and the others who've been so persistent and dedicated to moving this program forward as well. I know I met with you years back, attended the meetings, and felt the same way that this is an absolutely essential program. It's impossible to take a man or woman who's been incarcerated and just throw them on the street with no training, and really in an environment where oftentimes we then attempt to further humiliate them. We make it more difficult for them to come back into society. We don't want them to vote. We cast them out. And in ways, we do things which only, I think, make the situation worse. So the fact that you're there stepping up with the business community to try to find a way to bring them back into society so that we can all live together. We're all fallen, every single solitary one of us. So they just happen to serve in jail or prison. But I think this is fantastic. So anything that we can do to help you, and Commissioner Beckner, thank you, and just honored to be part of it.
Commissioner Christ.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I, too, would like to thank Commissioner Beckner for your leadership in this area. This is one that has always been a special area for me, having worked in this field for so long. You know, in looking at the correction system in Florida, it's easy to lose sight of this particular area, and that's the transition, and actually it's the most critical part of the process. Your leadership in helping to bring this forward in our community is very much welcomed and respected. You know, the part that I think that really impressed me is looking, you know, so often we look at programs, they sound good, they have great mission statements, but when you look deeper, there isn't really the metrics that is necessary to ensure that we're getting best value. And looking at this plan and seeing that you've done our homework and you've worked into this, the metrics of having the numbers so that we could see what the recidivism rate and the impact of the program has been, is, and will be, is remarkable. And this is the kind of responsible programming that we need to move forward in looking at as we start to direct funds here at the county level.
Commissioner Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me. I've had the opportunity to work with Mr. Blunt for many, many years in the legislature and county commission, and just a private citizen, and working with his father-in-law, who's my fraternity brother, late Reverend A. Brown. I want to thank Mr. Gay, I'm sorry, for being with us, and the gentleman that's on your board, and the work that you do to help turn lives around of people that made a mistake and now get a second chance. Commissioner Beckner, my question to you is, where do we go from here? Where are we?
And thank you, Commissioner Miller. I will expound upon that. I will close by first thanking again Mr. Gay and Mr. Blunt for their leadership and the work they've done around this issue. As I mentioned, the initial startup for this program has been funded. And so what we need to consider as a board is the appropriate role that we would play in the sustaining funding of this program years down the road. And so let me just say in first comment on what some of you had said, and as I have brought this out into a wider community, most have seen this as a very, very valuable program and have embraced it because of the issues concerning how we believe that we have an obligation to get these people back on their feet again. There are, however, some segments of the people that I've spoken to question the wisdom of using taxpayers' dollars to fund a program that they believe that helps support individuals that have committed crimes against humanity. And so it's interesting to hear their comments, but let me tell you why. For those of you that are out there or have any doubt of why this makes sense to fund, this is not only the right and humane thing to do, this is the responsible, especially the fiscally responsible thing to do. Because as you have heard in the statistics, 33%, over 33% that return into our community from prison, that they have the unresolved issues that we discussed, are going to recidivate and commit another crime. That crime could be against any one of us, it could be against any one of you out there, or anybody else that's listening out there, so you could become a victim of the crime. Also, there are to house an inmate in prison, over $21,000 a year we spend to house somebody in prison. The average rate of an incarceration rate is between 4 and 5 years. So do the math, folks. You're talking $80,000 to $100,000 a year to send somebody back to prison that's going to get caught in the cycle, that when their problems are left unaddressed, will return to our community and be caught in the cycle until the point that the system in this society commits them to the prison system for the rest of their lives at a rate, again, of well over $21,000, $22,000 a year. So making this investment in the upfront to make sure that those issues that got them there to begin with can be addressed, to get them a great job, is an investment that this community should make and everyone should be willing to make. So moving forward, what I'm going to ask of this board to do, because administration has been working with Mr. Blunt and also with Mr. Gay in this issue, what we need to do is develop as a board a strategy of what we believe our commitment is on a funding level to make sure that this program can be successful in the years to come. Also, I would suggest to you that as we are encouraging the private sector to become involved, we should not ask of them what we are not willing to do ourselves. So I would also raise the question, is what role can we play as government, and what role can we do to help these individuals become employed within the public sector? So my motion would be to direct staff to continue working with A. Brown Ministries and Mr. Gay of Operations New Hope and their staff to develop a long-term funding strategy for this program in Hillsborough County, and also to bring back recommendations to this board of how we can provide perhaps incentives for our contractors and anybody else that procures through the county, as well as examine our own policies to figure out what we can do as government to help get these people back on their feet and gainfully employed again. So that's my motion, and I believe the direction that we need to move forward with this.
Commissioner Christ and then Merman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I couldn't agree with you more. In fact, the numbers that you mentioned are conservative numbers. When I left the Senate, the costs were about 10 or 15% higher than that. When you look at the recidivism rate, they're far too high. And the expense of the recidivism to the taxpayer is far greater than the expense for providing the transitional programs temporarily to help these folks transition back into the community and become contributing members of our society. We have to remember that they have paid their time. They have paid for their crime. Now they want to come back and they want to transition into the community and be supporting citizens once more. If we do not reach out and help pull them up and back in, the chances of them recidivating and going back into the correctional system, which is very costly, is great. You are 100% right.
Commissioner Merman.
Thank you, and thank you, Commissioner Beckner. This is a very important issue. I do think there's a lot of responsibilities here. I do think the state has neglected to do anything while they're in prison, and it is a huge problem. I would like to see this possibly be on our legislative agenda. I know Brandon's out there somewhere. Maybe we should add this item to our legislative agenda, that the state recognize that they need to take responsibility for training these people before they're kicked out and get their sentence. I mean, in some ways. Now, coming back home, then it is our responsibility, and I would like staff to also look at a partnership with the Tampa Bay Workforce Alliance to, I mean, if we're going to talk about funding, is what role will they play, and can we incentivize them to work with these individuals and get them into training academies and schooling and different things that they're going to need, because that's where the difference is going to be made, is going through the Workforce Alliance. They have all the connections. They have all the potential for really helping these people get jobs and getting them trained. So that's my two suggestions in referring this to staff, that they talk to the Workforce Alliance to see what partnership and possibly add to the legislative agenda.
Commissioner Miller.
I will say this quickly, Commissioner Merman, when I was in the legislature and I was in the Senate, I filed a bill to establish 5 of our prisons and our prison districts to train prisoners that weren't habitual offenders or murderers, to train them in some type of background to when they got out to get jobs. The state of Florida wanted to do that. They were told that if we did that, the federal government would cut off any funding that they had to the state. So therefore, the bill died. So to be ever mindful that we've tried that, the federal government stopped the state from doing that.
Well, I'll include in my motion that I think we should have Brandon, we can add this also to the legislative agenda to consider, you know, what are our options as far as advocating for funding or the other appropriate measures that we need to help citizens that are returning or ex-offenders.
Okay, we got a motion by Commissioner Beckner, second Commissioner Christ. Please record your vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioners, your next item is your 10-4.